Hey there, good morning. I'm Bernie Miklasz, and of course, this is the Bernie Show presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. Hey, the Cardinals had another admirable win on Tuesday. They rebounded from Monday's pretty dull loss to the Orioles by rising up for a 7-4 win last night at Camden Yards. Andre Palante blew a 3-0 lead. And the Cardinals rallied from a 4-3 deficit to stage their 13th comeback victory of the season already. The Cardinals have won 19 of the last 26 games, and they are 17-5 since May 4th. They'll play the Orioles one more time with a chance to win the series, and I hope they do because the Orioles are a pretty bad club. But you're going to lose to a bad club every now and then. A St. Louis team that slashed nearly $40 million from the payroll over the offseason and spent only $2 million on free agency before 2025, now has as we sit here this morning, they now have the ninth best winning percentage among the 30 teams. And that's even after getting off to a terrible start, mostly because the bullpen was a mess. Entering this series finale tonight in Baltimore, the Cardinals are 7 games over 500 at 31-24. They continue to be one of the most surprising teams, as in surprisingly good teams in the major leagues so far in 2025. By now, I think it's pretty obvious manager Oli Marmol, his coaching staff, and the players are making the most of the talent on hand. No team in professional sports has a roster where every single player is having a good season. Every single player is reaching their maximum potential. That just doesn't happen. And that also, of course, applies to the Cardinals. There's always going to be a percentage of guys who are slumping or underperforming, or you're waiting on them to come around and they don't. Sometimes they do. And the Cardinals have had, in a year where they're not going all in to win, and that's reflected by the reduced payroll. Also reflected by, they play 2 young guys who are struggling, who have been struggling most of the season, talking about Nolan Gorman and Jordan Walker, where if you were in a different situation, a team would probably turn to other players instead. But the Cardinals have stayed with Walker and Gorman, because that was the plan in this reset runway transition season, or whatever you want to call it. So, anybody who basically is sane would agree with the premise that given how the Cardinals conducted themselves during the offseason, and given how, basically they put together a team that was not designed specifically to win as many games as possible, they have started to, they have clearly exceeded any expectations set for them to this point. And if it means anything, because we're talking about a small sample, we're starting to see some progress indeed from Nolan Gorman and Jordan Walker. As of Wednesday morning, believe it or not, the Cardinals had the exact same record, 31-24, as the New York Mets, that team with a $328 million payroll. The Cardinals also have had the same record today as the San Francisco Giants, who are outspending the Cardinals by more than $40 million this season. Come to think of it, and I looked it up this morning to be sure, the Cardinals have a better record than 6 teams that are equipped with payrolls of $200 million or more this season. The Braves, Red Sox, Blue Jays, Rangers, Astros, and Angels. The Cardinals have a better record than the Diamondbacks. They just swept the Diamondbacks, a team that's spending nearly $50 million more on payroll than St. Louis in 2025. So if we're being objective about this, there's not much to complain about when it comes to evaluate Marmol's performance as manager. He makes mistakes because, every manager makes mistakes. But all you can ask of a manager is to do the best he can with what he has. And I think it's pretty obvious Marmol and his coaches are doing that. And listen, I've ripped Marmol plenty of times, and I will continue to do so. Like what I'm saying, if some game gets mangled, say, well, he shouldn't have done that. Or I couldn't understand why he batted Mason Wynn leadoff last season. I don't give Marmol a free pass on anything. But the difference between me and I think some other people is that I isolate my reactions to a particular mistake or a particular lineup decision that doesn't make sense. I see them as isolated things. My evaluation is based on the entire spectrum of how a manager is doing because they're all going to screw up. It just doesn't happen in St. Louis, Missouri. You know, what else can I say? But what I can't stand is when people, and again, man, people can say whatever they want. It's not that big of a deal. But I'm just telling you, I can't stand it when people just, well, he shouldn't have. He should have pinch hit this guy. He should have started that guy. Therefore, he's the worst manager in baseball. No. Even the best managers screw up. And for some of you who are younger, and I don't mean to sound like old granddad here, because first of all, I'm not a grandparent. And men and women of a certain age will remember that back in the day, Tony La Russa was catching hell all over the place. There was somebody flying a banner, and one of those airplanes with a banner, small airplanes with a banner over spring training site in Jupiter, something like "Save the Franchise, Fire La Russa." So Tony La Russa's got second most wins in the history of baseball, the winningest manager in Cardinals history. He was getting ripped all the time for stuff that he did or decisions that he made. But his body of work, we have to agree, was pretty damn remarkable. So that's the only thing I would ask. And people can do what they like. And it's really tough in the social media age because everyone's performing. But I try to evaluate a manager's body of work rather than just using one big screw up to define his overall impact or value as a manager. I mean, that's the proper way to do it. That's just me. The Cardinals have a top 10 offense. Their defense is the best in the majors. Their starting pitchers have the 10th best ERA among the 30 teams. The bullpen ERA is just outside of the top 10, but since Marmol and pitching coach Dusty Blake retooled the bullpen, and they did it quickly, the St. Louis relievers ranked second in ERA since April the 25th. So if you want to look at it, they're basically a top 10 team in all of these areas. So for those of you who would push back on my opinion that Marmol and his staff are doing a really good job of making the most of their talent, please answer a question for me. Do you think that this is a top 10 major league caliber roster? Is this a top 10 talent base? The correct and obvious answer, the correct and obvious and honest answer is no. So then kindly tell me how the Cardinals are a top 10 caliber team in every major statistical category. How are the Cardinals only 3 games behind the Cubs? How have they managed to put together the 9th best winning percentage in the majors? Why do they have the 7th best run differential in the majors? How are the Cardinals, who rank 19th among the 30 franchises in payroll, outperforming all of those teams that I mentioned, all of those teams that have substantially larger payrolls? Listen, I can't predict how this 2025 season is going to end, but to this point, any reasonable, fair-minded person would praise Marmol and his staff for doing a good job, even if the praise is grudging. Even if you can't stand Marmol and you haven't liked him, okay. There's people I don't like. I'm not going to apologize for it, but I'll tell you this: if there's people that I don't like personally or whatever, but I see that they're doing a good job, I'll say, hey, got to say, guys, doing a good job. I mean, grudging praise is a lot, offering grudging praise is a lot more classy than being a buffoon. That's the way I look at it. Anyway, many of you have said, and I have said it too, President of Baseball Operations John Mozeliak has struggled to build a winning roster. He's made all kinds of payroll mistakes, wasted a lot of dollars. He let the Cardinals fall behind in analytics and technology. He did nothing as the once heralded farm system basically crumbled. And now they're rebuilding all of that with Chaim Bloom doing that job before he takes over for Mo. So how can the Cardinals be doing so well in the field? And that even goes back to last year when they had a winning season, and they shouldn't have. They should have been 76 and 86, but they won 83 games. Based on run differential, they should have been 76 and 86. So with the Cardinals, how can they be doing so well on the field despite all of our misgivings and anger and frustration and that feeling of dread and hopelessness over Mozeliak's performance in recent seasons in his job? Might that tell us that the manager's doing a hell of a job? Or if for me to say hell of a job, that's maybe too enthusiastic for you. Doesn't that tell us that the manager's doing a good job? Might that tell us that? I don't know. Look, we can't have it both ways here. That's my opinion. If Mozeliak has done such a poor job, then and the owner's not committed to winning, as I hear all that, then why do they have the same record as the New York Mets? I think it means that the manager's pretty much at the top of his game, because he wouldn't be compensating for all the ownership cutbacks and the front office flaws unless he was at the top of his game as a manager. I mean, this is just common sense. I mean, you can just talk about any team where a manager is in this situation, and no matter what the manager's name is or the team he works for, I would say the same thing. It would be true of any manager that has done this under these circumstances. And yeah, Oli Marmol is one of those managers. The Cardinals not only have a .564 winning percentage, they're also an entertaining team. They're energetic. They compete like crazy. They play with great spirit. It's a team that has fun, and that makes them fun to watch. They have a lot of personality. They have a strong identity. It's a really close-knit team. You can see the bond is there between the players and the manager and the coaches. The manager and the coaches do a lot of teaching, and we're seeing results. And this group, from the manager all the way down to the final man on the 26-man roster, they deserve a hell of a lot of credit for what this team has done, at least in the first 55 games of the season. Now, later in this video, I'm going to give you a stat that'll surprise you and maybe even amaze you. The information will not be easy at all for the Oli Marmol haters to digest, but they're just going to have to get over it. But first, I want to turn my attention to DraftKings and the daily pick six game. It's a winner. DraftKings covers a wide variety of sports, but if you think you know Major League Baseball, and it is a baseball town, right? Then it's time to put your knowledge to use. Put it to work. Win some big cash prizes through the daily pick six contest at DraftKings. In DraftKings Pick Six, you focus on player stats. You select anywhere from 2 to 6 players for that night's or that day's game. You choose whether the individual player will go higher or lower than the specific stat set for his next game by DraftKings. For example, I gave you one this yesterday. We can follow up on it. Like before Tuesday's game, Lars Nootbaar, a Cardinals outfitter, had really been struggling. He had a pregame line of 0.5 homers for Tuesday night. What that means is if he hit a homer and you had chosen higher than 0.5, and if he hit a homer, which he did, then that means you win if you chose higher, because he hit a big home run and right in the middle of a great game by Nootbaar. It was great to see him break out after an extended slump. Yeah, it's that simple. It's fun. There's so many good options to choose from when you select your pick six players. And even if you click on the player's name, when you see what line is set for him, it's got some information in there that'll help you make a good decision. So you're not entirely on your own. DraftKings is giving you some info that'll set a path for you, to where you can make up your mind without wondering about certain things. So here's an invitation to get in the game and take your best shot at winning money. Pick Six is available in most states, including Missouri, California, Texas, Georgia, and more. You'll enjoy tracking your selected players while the games are in progress. That's part of the fun. But the most fun and the most entertainment is winning. And you can do that at DraftKings as well. Of course you can. It's easy to get started. Just download the DraftKings app, which is so easy to use. And you open an account, you choose your sport, pick your players, go for it, and good luck to you. New players at DraftKings get $50 in Pick Six credits instantly with just a $5 entry. Download the DraftKings Pick Six app now and use the code STL Sports. That's code STL Sports for new customers to play $5 and get $50 in Pick Six credits. Better payouts, bigger wins, only with Pick Six from DraftKings, The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
All right, before I get into the one stat about Marmol that jumped out at me, I want to share some other thoughts about the manager. It's really interesting because we view him still as kind of a young manager, right? And he's a young man as far as managers are concerned. But it's interesting how this is all evolving. With the firings earlier this season of Bud Black in Colorado, Derek Shelton in Pittsburgh, and Brandon Hyde in Baltimore, Marmol is now tied for 10th among major league managers for the number of games that they have managed in their current positions. In other words, I'm not talking about overall managerial careers and games managed, like Bruce Bochy, for example, totally different category, but he's only managed the Rangers for 3 years, right? This is about who has been in their current jobs that they have now, who has been in their current jobs the longest. And the only 9 managers that have been in their current jobs longer than Marmol in St. Louis are Dave Roberts in LA, Kevin Cash, Tampa Bay, Brian Snitker, Atlanta, Torey Lovullo in Arizona, Aaron Boone, New York Yankees, Alex Cora, Boston, Dave Martinez, Washington, AJ Hinch in Detroit, and Rocco Baldelli in Minnesota. And in the NL Central, it's almost funny to realize this. He's got Oli Marmol is the most senior manager in terms of most games managed with the team in the position that he's in. Oli's in his 4th season in St. Louis. Craig Counsell's in his 2nd season managing the Cubs. Pat Murphy, 2nd season with the Brewers. Terry Francona's 1st season leading the Reds, and the Pirates are being guided by an interim manager, Don Kelly. So the longevity thing is interesting to me. And I was among, frankly, well, heck, you watch my videos and read my work, and I dearly thank you for that. Heck, I was doing videos last off season about how, Oli's on thin ground, and if the Cardinals have a bad season with attendance down, how can they not hire like Albert Pujols or Yadier Molina? And I really felt that at the time, because to me it seemed like the circumstances were pointing in that direction. So I was among the many people who thought Marmol went into the season with shaky job security. You could say hazardous, treacherous job security. I mean, he was unpopular with the fans. The roster had been trimmed down, pared down. The payroll had been slashed. They weren't going all out to win. They were in this kind of halfway, well, we want to win. We want to have a winning season, but, but the goal is to let young players have an opportunity. So we're not really trying to go all that hard to win, but we want to commit to young players and stick with them even if they stink. So we're just kind of halfway here, halfway there. Well, no wonder many of us thought, Marmol was on the so-called thin ice. And I know this, his name was on the national media short list of managers most likely to be fired during 2025. Well, Marmol has not only survived, if anything, don't throw fruit at me, Oli haters. I'm glad I'm speaking to you through the internet rather than face to face. You might throw a pie in my face or something, because Marmol has not only survived, if anything, he is strengthening his job security with the Cardinals during this weird and at times awkward transition season. With President of Baseball Operations John Mozeliak set to hand off the top baseball job to Chaim Bloom after the season. I mean, it's a weird season, but yet despite all the weirdness, including the Nolan Arenado trade talk distractions that have not been a distraction at all because of the way Marmol and Arenado and everyone has handled it, this team is doing really well, and it's a happy team, and it's a focused team. And it's a team that, mentally is just smarter, and it's just playing a better brand of baseball. So I think that's kind of against all odds type of thing that's happening so far. The other thing about Oli Marmol's longevity, I wanted to branch out a little bit because I think this stuff is funny, given the doom and gloom. Oh, he'll be fired. He's got no chance. They should have fired him after 2023, all that stuff, right? And there was some legitimacy to those views, not after last season, but after 2023. Yeah, that wouldn't have been a crazy thing to fire him then, not at all. But take a look at the local sports scene. My goodness, St. Louis City SC just fired its coach for the second time in less than a year. And frankly, St. Louis SC, after that great expansion season, record-setting expansion season, has been an embarrassment over the last 2 years. And they keep firing coaches. Yeah, it's coach's fault. Let's get another coach. They got an interim in place now. I don't know. Will they give him a few games before they fire him? How come no one in St. Louis media talks about the people that are hiring the coaches? Just an aside on St. Louis City SC. Can anybody explain that to me? Because I'm an uneducated man, apparently. You know, when you have an expansion team that was record-setting good, and you have a guy who's a finalist for the coach of the year, and you don't even let him get to halfway in his second year, you fire him. Then you go to Sweden or whatever and bring this guy in, and you fire him already. Isn't that more about the people doing the hiring and putting the roster together? Hello, media, St. Louis media. Hello. Big mouth here, just with that question. All right. I got that off my chest. The St. Louis Blues have had 3 coaches since December of 2023. That ain't that long ago. They fired the Stanley Cup winning coach, only one in Blues history, Craig Berube. They fired Berube. They fired Berube's replacement, Drew Bannister. Then they fired Bannister to hire Jim Montgomery. And by the way, I'm not saying any of these things are wrong, especially bringing in Monty. But they're on their 3rd coach since December of 2023. I'm not going to leave the Battlehawks out of this. Anthony Becht is in his 3rd season as head coach of the Battlehawks, which means Marmol has been here longer. As you remember, who was it in 2020 that coached the Battlehawks? I can see the man. I'm just blanking out, and I apologize. I thought he did a good job, and then the league went on sabbatical. Marmol has been in place longer than all of the St. Louis coaches that I've mentioned. No one thought Marmol would still be here, especially after that 91-loss season in 2023, and he won't be getting sacked anytime soon. They all get sacked or retire eventually. Marmol got the job at a relatively young age, and he took over as the franchise. Little did we know the extent of it was entering a decline phase. But except for that gruesome season in 2023, which was more of an ownership management failure, I don't know what people expected Oli Marmol to do exactly. And now he's doing well, and now he's doing better than you think. And I'll explain that right after I tell you about Blue Chew. Gentlemen, I am proud to tell you about Blue Chew because I've been there and done that, especially those of you around my age. I collect Medicare, and I could collect Social Security, so that should tell you all you need to know about my age. Well, hell, I'm 66. I never try to hide that. The boy is young at heart. Anyway, and I'm still as immature as I appear to be. So anyway, gentlemen, please listen to what I have to say about Blue Chew. It can help you have a more pleasurable and fulfilling life with your significant other. So why miss out on that? What's the point of saying, no, I don't want to do that? Why? See, I have no hesitation making sure you know about all the benefits of Blue Chew because, again, I've been there, done that. So pretty significant percentage of men in the United States have been through that and had to deal with that. So there's no reason whatsoever to shy away from getting help. And it's easy to get help through Blue Chew, the original brand offering chewable tablets for enhanced intimacy. Think of Blue Chew as something that's a leadoff hitter, going to get you started when it's time to turn your attention away from sports and other matters and focus on your partner. You will get your first month of Blue Chew free. You're just a few clicks away, and it's really easy to get going. You sign up at bluechew.com. You consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. Blue Chew tablets are made in the U.S. They're shipped directly to your door. It's all done online. You don't have to make a doctor's appointment. You don't have to visit the doctor's office. There's no awkward conversations. You don't have to wait in line at the pharmacy. You just order online in comfort of your own home, and boom, you're good to go. Trust Uncle Bernie when I tell you this. There's nothing more attractive to your partner than confidence, and Blue Chew can help get you there. Give you that confidence when it's time that you want to have it. We've got a special deal for our listeners. You try your first month of Blue Chew free when you use promo code Bernie. You just pay $5 shipping. That's promo code Bernie. Visit bluechew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring the Bernie Show. All right, this is my final segment. See, it's like kind of look at this as when my longer videos are like a radio show. I break it down into segments. My final segment on this video on Oli Marmol and the Cardinals and evaluating what he's done. Here's the set I've been saving until the end. Yeah, and I did that. I'm a jerk. I saved it till the end. Through Tuesday, Oli Marmol had managed the Cardinals for 541 regular season games. So I had a suspicion about something, and I want to follow up on my suspicion. So I wanted to compare Oli Marmol's record to Tony La Russa after TLR's first 541 regular season games as a Cardinals manager. So again, let me just reset. What record did each manager have 541 regular season games during their tenure as the St. Louis Cardinals manager? Here we go. Tony La Russa through 541 games, 272 wins, 269 losses, 3 games over 500, and a winning percentage of .503. Oli Marmol through the same number of games, 541, 278 wins, 263 losses, 15 games over 500, 514 winning percentage. Wait a minute. Whoa, what? Huh? What? That can't be right. Marmol has a better record than Tony La Russa did when each of them reached game number 541 as the Cardinals manager. No, that's wrong. No, it's right. 100% right. 100% right. And if anything, here's another thing I'll throw out there. If anything, by the end of the season, Marmol's likely to have a much higher winning percentage than La Russa after each of those guys had their first 4 seasons as a Cardinals manager. See, because the 1999 Cardinals fell apart. They were okay up through 55 games in 1999. That's where the Cardinals are now, 55 games. They were 28-27 in 1999, but they really, really fell apart. And so maybe, who knows, maybe Oli Marmol's team will fall apart from this point on. You never can tell unless you're like the Dodgers or something. But this one, listen, I wrote about this. I followed this team. I wrote a million columns on La Russa and those Cardinals. But I had sort of forgotten this. After his first 4 seasons as a Cardinals manager, he actually had a losing record. He had a winning percentage of .493. And Marmol's winning percentage as the Cardinals manager 3+ seasons into his time here is .514. So unless the 2025 Cardinals collapse, Marmol's winning percentage through 4 seasons is going to put him safely above La Russa's winning percentage over his first 4 seasons. And I don't know. I find that to be remarkable, and for a couple of reasons. Because first of all, La Russa is one of the greatest managers in Major League history. He retired as the Cardinals manager with the most career wins in franchise history. Marmol's not going to match Tony's body of works during Tony's 35 seasons as a big league manager. And Oli Marmol's probably not highly unlikely he will match Tony La Russa's work in St. Louis, because Tony managed his team for 16 seasons and he had all kinds of success. And I don't know how many managers are going to be in the future, going to stay in their jobs for 16 seasons. That in itself, I'm talking about one job, the same job. That in itself is increasingly rare. It took La Russa, and that's the thing that we forget about TLR. We all remember, including me, we all remember the highlights, the high points. But it really took him a while to get things right in St. Louis. But then everything fell into place through a lot of help, as Tony'd be the first to tell you, through considerable help of Walt Jocketty, the general manager, who finally and thankfully and gratefully will be inducted into the team's Hall of Fame in September. God bless the late Walt Jocketty and his impact on this franchise. From 2000 through 2011, La Russa and the Cardinals led the National League in regular season wins, postseason wins. They captured 3 National League pennants and 2 World Series. And as I mentioned, Tony retired as the number 2 winningest manager of all time, number 1 winningest manager in Cardinals history in terms of regular season record. But again, I just want to provide some details. So the first 4 seasons, St. Louis for La Russa were really challenging. It started off great. They won the division title and a postseason round and got all the way to Game 7 of the NLCS in 1996. But after 1996, La Russa's Cardinals had a .451 winning percentage, 451 from 1997 through 99. That ranked 23rd. Those 3 seasons, 451 winning percentage. That ranked 23rd among the 28 MLB franchises that were in existence at that time. I mean, later on they added what? They added who'd they add? Arizona and Tampa Bay, I think. Did I miss anybody? I think those were the 2. It's off point, so I don't even know why I'm rambling about this. Okay. Now, with all due respect, and trust me, because I was there covering all this stuff, and I have a really great memory about it, and I looked up some stuff just to make sure. I don't want to hear anything about, well, Bernie, Tony La Russa took over a rebuilding project. The Cardinals were not very good before he got there. So in fairness to TLR, he had to rebuild that thing. Well, the Cardinals, yes, had to rebuild what had been a really sad period that really began 1990 through 1995. They were largely irrelevant. Anheuser-Busch was underfunding the team because they were preparing for sale. We didn't know it at the time. And it was just kind of a shoestring operation. But here's the thing about TLR, who I have the greatest respect and admiration for, and just it was an honor to cover that man, and I learned so much from him. He took over at a good time, despite what some people will say in their attempt to disparage what Marmol has done in his first 4 years. Actually, TLR took over at a great time because the Cardinals were, you talk about a reset, the Cardinals were rolling out a whole new era and a whole new product because Bill DeWitt and his partners bought the team right before Christmas in 1995. So La Russa went to work for brand new ownership that basically promised him everything that he asked for. And that ownership was ready to jumpstart the franchise, to get the crowds back and to kind of reinvent Cardinals baseball and get it back to the way it should be. And that ownership group did not hesitate to spend money to accelerate TLR's chances for instant success. And you already had Walt Jocketty in place as the Cardinals general manager. So between the owner's enthusiasm and willingness to spend and Jocketty's obvious skill to make trades, La Russa had an ideal setup, really. If you're going into a situation where they hadn't won for a while, this is pretty much the most ideal setup you could walk into. The Cardinals ranked 9th in payroll in 1996, and over his first 4 seasons as the manager, their average payroll came in just under 10th. The 1996 club that won the division was boosted, and by the way, they won 88 games, so it's not like they won 100, but still, they won 88 games. It was great. I love that team. The 1996 club was boosted by the offseason additions of starting pitchers Andy Bennis and Todd Stottlemyre, relievers Dennis Eckersley and Rick Honeycutt, 34 home run hitting outfielder Ron Gant, that's what he hit in 96, third baseman Gary Gaetti, shortstop Royce Clayton, who shared the job with Ozzie Smith, and the return of center fielder Willie McGee as a free agent. Don't forget, La Russa also inherited 2 terrific homegrown hitters in Ray Lankford and Brian Jordan. And those 2 were soon followed by J.D. Drew, who put up great numbers in St. Louis. From 1997, let's go beyond 1996. From 1997 through 1999, the Cardinals added either as a homegrown talent or trades or free agents, whatever. They added J.D. Drew, Mark McGwire, Fernando Tatis Sr. Look at his numbers as a Cardinal the first couple of years. Edgar Renteria, who's going to be inducted into the Team Hall of Fame later this year. 2 really good bench guys, 3 really good bench guys, like Eric Davis, Sean Dunston, and Craig Paquette. And then 2 drafted and developed starting pitchers, Matt Morris and Rick Keel. And then this isn't relevant to 97 through 99, but there was a guy you may have heard of who was quickly making his way to the majors. He debuted in 2001. His name was Pujols. And then a guy named Molina followed in 2004. So La Russa was a hell of a manager, like I said, but he came along at a pretty fortuitous time, given the fact that 2 franchise icons were almost ready to start their careers, and then a third, Adam Wainwright, would come along a little bit later after the turn of the century. So Marmol was the manager for the final seasons of the 3 legends, Pujols, Molina, and Wainwright, and he inherited a good club managed by Mike Schilt. And that's when he inherited Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt in their prime. Remember, Goldie won the MVP in 2022, and Nolan Arenado was third. So, if you thought I was going to ignore some of the advantages that Oli had when he took over as a first-time manager, yeah, of course I'm going to acknowledge those things. I mean, give me a little credit for being honest, right? But Marmol, this is also true. He was the manager of the Cardinals when the Cardinals were starting to lose their way, not because of managing necessarily, maybe a small factor as Marmol was trying to learn his way through a new job. But if you really just want to lay it down, right? They were starting to lose their way, the Cardinals, because of front office failures. It'd been a long time developing, but long, front office failures, payroll waste, organizational decay. Not only that, but ownership began to decrease payroll, right? As mentioned, during TLR's first 4 seasons as a manager, the Cardinals had an average annual payroll ranking that put them between 9th and 10th. In Oli Marmol's first 4 seasons as manager, including where the Cardinals are now, the Cardinals have had an average annual payroll ranking that puts them just under number 15. Russa worked for Walt Jocketty, and Russa worked for a highly motivated owner in Bill DeWitt Jr. Marmol has worked for John Mozeliak after Mo went stale and let the thing become outdated, and Marmol has worked for a less motivated Bill DeWitt. Again, if we're honest, I think we could basically agree to both of those things I just said. And yet, even though we know Tony La Russa was working for better people and more motivated people when he took over, and a team that was spending more money when he took over, Marmol's record at this point in his 4th season is better than La Russa's record at this point in his 4th season. So this is about the only time I'm going to be a jerk in this video. So just remember what I just told you there. The next time you see or hear some idiot ripping Marmol as a terrible manager who is in way over his head and he didn't deserve the job and blah, 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 blah. By the way, that's one thing that gets on my nerves. And I would say this even if I didn't think Marmol is a good manager. I think he's developed into a good manager. All the people that, and this isn't a straw man thing because I hear it all the time. And I've heard it from my friends. It's like, well, it's nothing against Oli, but I'll never get over the way he was hired. They fired Mike Schilt because Mike Schilt and Mozeliak couldn't get along, and Mozeliak, wielded his power and fired him. So I just can't get over how Oli got his job. First of all, you think Oli's first guy to ever get a job because the previous manager or head coach was feuding with the front office? It's happened, right? The other thing, my friends, is that happened in the first days of November in 2021. It is now almost June of 2025. How long are you going to hold on to that exactly? When are you going to let that go? I could see Oli Marmol being, so if Oli Marmol wins and wins big, you're still going to say, well, look, I'm happy the Cardinals won, or going to the World Series. Not that I'm predicting they will. I'm really happy that they won the World Series, but I'm sorry. I just can't get over how he got the job. Again, like I said, I was being a jerk. I'm entitled to be a jerk at least one time in my video. But seriously, how can if you hear some people talk about Marmol, even now, how can such a hopelessly bad, inept manager have a better record than Tony La Russa after they each managed their first 541 regular season games as manager of the St. Louis Cardinals? How is that possible? La Russa never had to go through a reset or a rebuild or, ownership telling them, well, we're going to cut the payroll and we're going to play the kids and, we're just going to kind of scale back. We're going to scale it down. Not once in 16 years did Tony La Russa ever have those conditions in place. So, if you look at their records at the exact same moment in their time in the first roughly three and a half years as Cardinals manager, How is it that these supposedly inept Oli Marmol's got a better record than Tony La Russa? I don't know. I'm just going to leave it at that. And I'm going to say goodbye, and I'm going to show some class. Yeah, every now and then I do. I'm going to show some class and say goodbye before I start chuckling. Thanks for watching The Bernie Show, presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours.